All right. Good day, ma'am and sir. This is Sir Ken once again. For today's video, we will discuss on how to solve the independent samples t-test using the SPSS. Now let's start. Um, First and foremost, you have to open SPSS 17. Um, yeah, as what you can see here, this is how it would look like when you open the version number 17. Okay, so you can see here two tabs: the data view and the variable view. Okay, so in SPSS, you always have to encode your data first here in the variable view. So this is the part wherein you're going to assign or you're going to format in some sort of sense before entering the data here in the data view. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, we have here the statement of the problem or the sample question in the independent samples t-test. Is there a significant difference in the math scores according to gender? Okay, so our variables here are the math scores and the gender. So let's try to type that one here. Say math. In the first column, you have here to type the name of that variable, math scores. So take note, ma'am and sir, here in the name column, hindi pwede ang MySpace. So that's why I actually put here an underscore to allow it to have some sort of spaces. Okay, math scores. Because if you are going to put a space here, math score, it will have an error here. Variable name contains illegal characters. That's why you have to remove the spaces. So let's start math scores. Okay, and then click just anywhere. All right, so and I think you don't need to change here anything. You may actually reduce this one into 0 because there's no decimal point in the value that I'm going to enter later on. Okay, and the scale measurement is it's a scale. All right, and then I have here the gender variable, gender. Then let's click OK. Decimals, I don't need decimals. And what is important here is in this value column. So this is where we are going to nominate or assign a value. So you can just like have here in the value. Let's say, for example, we're going to assign male as number 1. So let's put here 1. Then we're going to label it as male. Then click add. Then 2 is for female. Okay, then click add. And yeah, that's pretty much it, ma'am and sir. And okay, and for good practice, you may actually change here the measurement or the type of data into nominal because the variable gender is actually in nominal type of data. But um, if you're wondering, what if, sir, if I got it wrongly or assigned it wrongly, it doesn't matter, ma'am, this is sir. Okay, so if you put here scale, it's okay. If you put here ordinal, it's okay. So it won't affect your data at all. Okay, so but for, of course, good practice, you have to put here nominal. Okay, now let's go back now to the data view. So you can see here two columns that is already labeled into math scores and gender because a while ago we put here the variable view or the name assigned it into math scores and gender. Now let me just try to take here some hypothetical data. So let's say, for example, I have here a 30 math score. So I'll just have to paste it. Okay. And please take note, ma'am and sir, in SPSS, in I guess in any form, so we have to be really make sure that we are typing the data correctly and properly, because we know if we didn't type it, that will yield a different result. So you have to be very sure on what you are typing. Okay. Next, we have here. We're going to type now the data under the gender. So let me just copy this, then copy, then I'm going to paste it here. All right. You can see here that there is already an automatic value encoded numbers, because you can see here in the Excel file that I copied. So I have here 1 and 2. So because a while ago we already assigned some values here in the values tab, wherein it's 1 and 2. Okay. So uh if you're going to untick this value labels, so it will return into 1 and 2 once again. But if you click this, it will show that the values that you assigned or nominated. Now let's say, for example, I type in number 3. So wala. Okay, so meaning to say I didn't assign any values into that. So if I will type 2 here, so it will automatically form into female, same as 1. And if I type in 5, so it is not showing anything because I didn't assign or nominate any value. So let me just try to clear this thing out and clear the values here. Okay, now so in performing the independent samples t-test, all you need to do is to click Analyze. Okay, to click Analyze, then Compare Means, and then you have to click the Independent Samples t-test. So click this. All right, here you can see another pop-up window. So wherein you could see here the variables that you have encoded. So to perform the independent samples t-test, transfer the math score into the test variable, because this is what we are going to test. This is the variable that we are going to test, since this is our dependent variable. So diri natin ibutang ang mga dependent variables natin nga gina-test. Next, we're going to click gender and transfer it into the grouping variables. Okay, you can see here some question mark. So because we didn't define it yet. Okay, so now we are going to identify. So once again, what are the numbers that we assigned in a while ago into males and females? Yes, we have here to put 1 and 2. 1 is for male, 2 is for female. So it doesn't matter what value did you assign. For example, if you assign 0 for male or 99 for female, it really doesn't matter as long as you just put it and assign it properly here. Okay, so just click continue and just click. By the way, in the options tab, you don't need to change anything here. This is the confidence interval, which is set by default, which is in 95%, because that's the confidence level, and the 0.05 alpha or margin of error. So let's continue and then just click OK. All right, we have here the two tables. So we have here the group statistics, and we have here the independent sample statistics or tests. So I guess for examination purposes, it's good for you to copy everything na lang for you for to be safe. No? But there are just only some important datas that we're just going to look at. Now, here in the first table, we have here the variable name, math scores, gender, and N is the population. And the population of male is 15, and female is also 15. So a total of 30 samples or 30 respondents. Now, you can see here the mean score. So ang mean daw ng male is if they're going to add the scores, all the scores of male, it's equivalent to 26.80 and standard deviation of 3.950. Okay, now so if the purpose of independent samples t-test is for us to compare the means between the two unrelated group. It is unrelated because male is different from the female, and these scores are coming from a different people. Okay? But if the score is just only coming from one single person, that could be considered as related groups. So then the appropriate statistical test that we're going to do with that is the paired samples t-test, which will be discussed later on in the next video. Um, Now, in this independent samples t-test, you could see here that 26.80 and 28 ang mean ng female. Now, there is a difference. There's a difference between 26.80 and 28. Now, we are going to check if the difference between 26.80 and 28 is significant or not. So now, to do that, you have to go here in the independent samples t-test a column. You have here several results that you are going to check on. So, but the most important thing that you have to report only is the sig value and the t value. Okay. Now, in independent samples t-test, what you have to look first is this sig value. This one. It shows here it's 0.927. Now, remember, ma'ams and sir, if the Levene's test, this is the Levene's test of equality of variance, if you could see that if it is not significant, you have to look for the value of equal variances assumed. So right here, then you have to look here for the t-tailed value, which is 0.405. Take note once again, if the sig value is not significant at 0.05 or the alpha level, so then you have to look and take the sig value two-tailed, which is 0.405. Now, if you could see here the sig value, which is less than or less than 0 or significant to 0.05, so you have to take the value for a point, this one, the equal variances not assumed. Okay? But you have noticed here in our data, it's the same. So there, because there are many instances nga iba yung value ng equal variances assumed and the equal variances not assumed. But generally, it's pretty much the same. So what you have to report is the t-value only, which is negative 0.846, and the sig two-tailed value, which is a 0.405. So which is not significant. So the difference between the math scores of male and female is not significant. Okay, so even just like closely looking at it, 26.80 is not really that, the difference is not really that big. So that's why we have here the result, which is the not significant. Okay, so I hope that one is clear. Now, in creating or in doing this test, there are several assumptions that we have to make sure. Okay, so first is the first assumption is your dependent variable should be measured on a continuous scale. Here in this two column, our dependent variable is the math scores. Okay, and math scores is actually a continuous type of data. When we say the word continuous, it could be either an interval or in the ratio level. Okay, so normally uh, just like for example, ang mga continuous, like either it's the IQ score, performance exam, or the weight, which is measured from 0 to 100, or ang weight naman is measured in kilograms. So that is a continuous type of data. Okay? Now, the we are already able to satisfy the first assumption. Now, the second assumption naman is like your independent variable should consist of two categorical independent groups. So when we say two categorical, it's not, there are two categories, which in our case, we have here the male and the female. Okay? So male and female. So first category, second category. So in the second assumption, we're able to satisfy nga, yeah, it's true. It's two groups, okay? But if there is like another like bisexual or trans and so on, so that doesn't satisfy the assumption. So of course, definitely you have to find another. Take note, ma'am, sir, if the assumptions were violated, um, it is proper for us to look for its parametric or non-parametric counterpart, uh, to avoid some further errors. Because if it's not satisfied, so there might be some negative impact or effects into our data. Okay, so it is always a good practice to check the assumptions. And another assumption in the independent samples t-test is there should be no significant outliers. Outliers, it means that these are the scores that is uh, outside or the lowest, um, which in the mean score or in the average score. For example, Dabe, you had a test in uh, about like for 100 people, and generally the mean score is 108. But if there is like one student nga like he or she was able to score 156, Dabe, that's totally far from the average. So we could consider that one as an outlier. Okay? And one more important thing, another assumption that we have to consider is the data should be normally distributed. Okay? So it should follow the normal curve shape bell. Okay? So if we satisfy these assumptions, so meaning to say we can perform the independent samples t-test. But if not, so we are going to consider the non-parametric counterpart. Okay? All right, so I guess that ends the discussion for independent samples t-test. Now, in the next video, we are going to discuss the dependent samples t-test.